What's happening, vinyl community? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you guys are when you're watching this. This is a collection update for you guys, but it's actually a synopsis for the year overall, Grail specifically. Since it's the final month of 2021, we'll call it 21 Grails for 2021. And it's been a hell of a first year back. If you guys follow my channel, or even if you're new to it, I've talked about it a little bit. The last time I was into vinyl was 2009. That's when I left the vinyl community to concentrate on other things. And in this crazy world we've been living in for the past year and a half, going on 2 years with COVID and the things that we've had to deal with, I, like many others, found myself sick at the beginning of this year and had to spend 3 weeks at home. And found myself watching a lot of YouTube, and actually stumbled on a couple different vinyl channels. Dylan at Noble Records, Chris Tunes from the Man Cave, Joe at Analog Archive, Jason at the Jazz Basement, Bob Bradley's channel, just to name a few. And a lot of those guys I can happily say that I've become friends with, and that says a lot about the vinyl community, that they welcome in people with new people with open arms. But getting back on point, I was watching a lot of their channels and different videos, and that it started to come back, and found a couple albums that I'd wanted online. I purchased them, and that fever came back, and been going full speed ahead ever since. And in these choppy waters that we've had to navigate since COVID first became a thing, we just have to find what makes us happy, and this is one of the things that really truly makes me happy. I can come home, I can listen to a great album, and I can have the shittiest day in the world, but an album or two, and I'm as happy as can be. And it says a lot about music. I mean, music is the language of the soul. So that's enough being philosophical. But the stack here is all stuff that I've acquired this year. It's a mixture of things I found in person, online, etc. And for one reason or another, they're all grails. There's some jazz, well, there's a lot of jazz, and then there's some non-rock stuff, and I saved the absolute best for last. So without further ado, let's get started. Hold on a second, guys, let me get a drink here. Excuse me. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start off with is a Pacific Jazz title. This is Sonny Stitt, My Mother's Eyes. It's a first pressing stereo on that blue and silver, deep groove, super clean. Picked this one up on eBay, honestly, because I had found the album on YouTube to listen to. Absolutely loved it, and Sonny Stitt is one of those, if you're not familiar with his work, he was a workhorse. He was on many different labels, and he just has an amazing catalog, and this is one of those that I absolutely fell in love with. Got this first pressing at a hell of a good price, and decided to pick it up. And it's one that's regularly in my rotation. It regularly finds itself as home on my the platter behind me, and happy to have this one in my collection. This is one you can find fairly cheaply, and I would definitely pick it up if you can find it. This next one is a non-jazz Grail that I've been wanting for many years, ever since I was a teenager, but could never find one, either the price I could afford or the condition that I was looking for. Came into some money earlier this year, sold some stuff out of my collection to fund some Grails. This one came up at the right time. The seller told me that it was came out of his father's collection, and did a little bit back and forth, talk about it. He sent me some samples, we made the deal, and when I got it, I was super excited when I got it, and I played it about 2 or 3 times before I finally cleaned it and put it away. is the Stooges Fun House. This is an original first pressing on that Electric Butterfly label. All it's got is it's got a few little paper scuffs here and there, but it plays pretty damn clean. It's at least a solid VG plus copy. Its only negative is it's got a pretty good seam split along the bottom, but I hope to rectify that here soon with a seams easy split. Finding copies of this in good shape are getting harder and harder to find. This album sells regularly in the $300 price range, and if it's in good shape, VG plus or higher, excuse me, I've seen them as high as $500 to $700. It's one of those albums that has just become iconic, and a lot of collectors have been searching for it. And with this this new generation of collectors that have come of age, original pressings are getting harder and harder to find, especially in good shape. But this is one of those that's been repressed quite a few times, so if you can't find original pressing, definitely pick up a reissue. It's one that you gotta have in your collection. The next one's actually another Sonny Stitt title. If you follow my channel, you'll know this, but if you're new to my channel, I'm a huge Impulse Records fan. I love the back catalog from the Impulse label, all the jazz titles, and I've been working my way through them. And this was one that came out for sale through an Instagram sale through Solo Vinyl Records. They're a store out of New Mexico that do, as well as physical brick and mortar, they also do online sales through Instagram on Thursdays and Fridays. They're taking a little bit of a break right now through the holidays, but this one came up for sale during the summer, and the second I saw it, I had to grab it. This is a Impulse A52. This is Salt and Pepper, Sonny Stitt, with all guns of Oz. It's an original stereo pressing on that orange and black label. Super clean. It's a must-have, and it's another one that gets regular rotation on the platter. Cannot recommend this one enough, and it's one you can find around the $30 to $50 mark. It's great heat at a reasonable price, and I think it's a bit of a sleeper title, honestly, compared to some of the other Impulse ones. So you can still find this one fairly easily, but definitely grab this one if you can find it. I hope to upgrade to a mono one of these days, but if I can't, this first stereo will suit me just fine. This next one actually came from a store about an hour from me. They got a big new wave and punk collection in, so I got notified through a friend of mine who works there, or did work there. And he saved me a couple that I'd asked for and went down and purchased them. This is the Ramones, Road to Ruin. This is a 1978 first pressing, Winchester pressing plant pressing on Sire Records. Super, super, super clean. Not much more can be said about the Ramones that hasn't already been said, but this is one of my favorite albums. This is the big track on this one is I Want to Be Sedated, but personally my favorite track on this is I'm Against It. It's just a hard-hitting one, and it's one of my absolute favorites. But got this one at a super clean, super price, and couldn't wait to get this one home and spin. It's one of those that's another one that's been on regular rotation on my platter. So again, it's the Ramones. Can't really say too much else that hasn't already been said. This next one's actually kind of a sleeper title. It's one I learned about later. Just when I started to really learn about jazz and stuff, and it's another one you can find on the cheap. This is Count Basie. You should call it E equals MC square. This is a first pressing, 1958 on the Roulette label. Super clean. You can pick these ones up for usually between $30 to $50 depending on condition. Not a huge big band guy, but this album's fire. Ironically enough, not just the cover. But one I'd highly recommend if you can find it. It's great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. And it just leaves you with a huge smile on your face. This next one came through a Instagram seller. He tends to do sales on Sundays usually. I don't know if he still does them, but he actually had, I saw this through when he was doing a pop-up. I saw this one in one of his bins and asked him if it didn't sell to contact me, and it hadn't, and we reached an agreement. It's the A85. This is a John Coltrane Quartet, plays Chim Chim Cheree, Song of Praise, Nature Boy Brazila. This is around similar, pretty close to when A Love Supreme came out, so it's got a similar sound to it. First pressing, again on that orange and black, super, super clean. That's one of the things that attracted me to it. But it's a great album. Actually, Chris at Tunes from the Man Cave had recommended this one to me earlier in the year. He had picked up a white label promo, and I had asked him about what this particular album sounded like, and he told me, he said it's a good one. You need to have it. So took some time and found a really clean copy, and happy to have this one in my collection. This next one came from the same punk and new wave collection that the Ramones did. This is an album I've wanted for quite a while, and not a particularly expensive one, but kind of hard to come by. This is the Smiths' Meat is Murder, first U.S. pressing on Sire Records. Again, super, super clean. Interesting note on this particular album, I mean, it's an iconic album, not much more needs to be said about it, but the UK pressings do not have one track that the US ones do. They decided at the last second to put the track How Soon Is Now on the US release while it was left off of the UK one because it had been released on an earlier album. And it actually ended up becoming one of their most familiar tracks in their catalog. If you're a TV fan, this track How Soon Is Now was actually used as a theme song for the TV show Charmed that ran in the 90s. But great album, iconic album, and I was really, really happy to get a first pressing in my collection. This next one's actually kind of a sleeper. I actually found this one again searching YouTube, looking at random. I was on a bit of a rock kick recently, stumbled on this album and really loved it. It's not one that's been reissued very much at all, so I had to search for an original pressing at a good price because it's kind of an expensive one. They go for like 150 to 200 bucks. This is Banzai Thinking. It's a US pressing on Polydor Records. Super clean. It's just pure 70s hard rock with a little bit of a medieval influence. That cover kind of gives it away. They put out a few albums, but they weren't a band that was around for very long. But if you can find this one, this is a heavy hitter if you can find it, especially if you're a rock guy. It's like I said, it's a heavy hitter, it's pure fire, and I got this one at a great price through a seller on Discogs. We did a little back and forth, and he was taking offers, sent him a fair offer, and he took it, and I got it to me in about a week, and put it on, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my absolute favorites as far as my non-jazz part of my collection goes. This next one is not one I would typically go after, but it's got a little bit of an interesting backstory. This is Impulse 9163. It's the Honeysuckle Breeze, Tom Scott, on the ABC Paramount Black and Red label. This is a second pressing. Like I said, not a particularly interesting one because, again, I'm not a huge vocal jazz fan, but this one's got an infamous part of music history because for those of you that are hip-hop fans, you would know, but for those that aren't, this album, a little 5 to 7 second clip was used on the famous early 90s rap title, They Reminisce Over You, or They Reminisce About You by Pete Rock. Great track. It's one I fell in love with, and it's like, once I found out where the sample came from, I searched this album out. And once the word got out about where that sample came from, original copies of this sell for around 200 bucks. This one was sealed, and I actually did an unboxing on this particular release about a month ago, if you want to check it out. But it's just an interesting album to have in the collection. As I said, I'm an Impulse junkie, so had to have this one in the collection. This next one actually came by way of a store in Colorado Springs. This is Kane, Pound of Flesh. Original pressing, solid VG Plus condition. This came from Leech Pit Records in Colorado Springs. Actually visited his Adams store back in summer of this year, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of Grails that were there, and wanted to grab this one, but I was already tapped out. Reached out to him at the end of August and asked him if this one was still available. It was still available. He sent me some pictures, sent me the price. We came to an arrangement, and he sent this one my way. Great album, again, solid heat, absolute smoker of an album, and it's getting harder and harder to find. These ones, I got a great price on this at $90, but I've seen these sell as high as 150, 175 bucks. Not super rare, but they're getting up there, like many other albums that were sleepers in the past. But if you can find this one, I'd definitely recommend picking it up if you're, especially if you're a rock fan. This next one actually was one that I did an unboxing of less than a week ago. This one came in by way of a Discog seller out of Europe. This is Rain Man. It's a 1971 first pressing on Negrum Records. Best thing I can describe it as, it's like psych folk, or art psych, whatever. There's a lot of different categories. But this album was only released in the Netherlands, and it features Q65 guitarist Frank Newens on it. It's a great album. It's been released a few times, but finding original copies are pretty damn difficult outside of Europe, so that's how I had to go about getting this one. It is missing the original inner sheet, but it's a great playing copy, and it's one I was really happy to get. And you can find not originals, but you can find reissues. As recently as this year, they reissued it on green vinyl, which I'm planning on picking up that reissue. You can get it for about 20 to 30 bucks. It's a great album. It's a little all over the place. Some of it's got rock elements in it. Some of it sounds like George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass." It's just a great album, and I think it's one that not a lot of people know about. And it's definitely one I would pick up if you can find it. This next one is it's pure free jazz, and I'm not a free jazz guy, but I fell in love with this album. This is A9154, Archie Shepp, The Magic of Juju. It's the first pressing on that ABC Paramount red and black label. Super clean. Got this by way of eBay through a seller. It's a particularly hard one as far as impulse goes to find. The best thing I can describe is if you've ever seen the James Bond movie Live and Let Die, there's that sequence where they're dancing or whatever. That tribal music's got a very similar sound to what's on this album. Again, pure free jazz, so if you're not a free jazz fan, you may not like this one, but give it a shot. I wasn't a free jazz fan, and I fell in love with this album. And it's an interesting one. It really showcases Archie's abilities as a musician. So again, if you can find this one, definitely pick it up. I don't think it's been reissued very many times, so it might set you back a little bit of money. This next one I actually have owned once before this year. My first copy was not in the best of shape, but I passed it on to a good buddy once this one came along. This is an iconic, and it's a must-have. This is Felonious Monk, Brilliant Corners. This is a second mono pressing, deep groove on that blue and silver label. Super clean, maybe just a couple light hairlines. Iconic album. It's one of my absolute favorites, and I found this by way of eBay. There was a lady who was liquidating or helping sell off a jazz collection, and I saw how clean the cover was, and I saw the vinyl was listed as VG Plus, so I decided to take a chance on it, and I got this for 60 bucks, and I was super excited when this one came. My old copy actually found a good home through a mutual friend of the vinyl community, Josh at Take Me a Birch on Instagram. my previous copy went to him, and I know it was one he was searching for a very long time, so I'm happy it got to him. This is one of my absolute favorites, and this is one you can actually find and reissue for at a really good price if you can't find an original. If I can find a first pressing down the line, I'll gladly do it, but if I can't, this second pressing will do me just fine. I'm happy to have it. Speaking of free jazz, this next one was one that I discovered once I started getting back into jazz, and I fell in love with it, just like the Archie show. It's Pharoah Sanders Karma. First pressing, again, ABC Paramount, red and black label. It's spiritual jazz / free jazz, but it's an iconic album. It's one of the most well known on Impulse's catalog. It's been reissued many, many times, and it's actually the album that made me fall in love with Pharoah Sanders' work. Chris at Tunes from the Man Cave actually was one that introduced me to Pharoah Sanders and recommended us to give this album a listen. I gave it a listen and I fell in love with it. And this one came through by way of a seller on Instagram. Got a really, actually we did a trade. I had a couple albums in my collection he wanted, and I wanted this, and it ended up working out monetarily at the right price, and made the deal. Got this, and it's one of my absolute favorites in my collection. This next one made the list because A, it's one of my favorite Monk albums, and B, because of it was a gift from somebody at the vinyl community. It's Monk's Music, Felonious Monk. This is I believe either a second or third press mono. I think it's a third press because it doesn't have the deep groove like the Brilliant Corners did. This came by way of Jason at the Jazz Basement. We actually started talking, and I mentioned I didn't have any Monk in my collection, and he took it upon himself to send this to me. And it says a lot about the vinyl community that basically, somebody that, we had very few communications. We just started, talking through love of music, and he sent this to me. And even if I can find an original, this will never leave my collection just because of the kindness that came with it. And it's one of my favorites, and I listen to it on a regular basis. Six more to go, guys. This next one I owned as a teenager, but my original copy disappeared, and I have no idea what happened to it. So again, was able to get this one at a really good price. This is Led Zeppelin II. This is an original first pressing on Atlantic. VG Plus condition. This came by way of Cloud City Records on Instagram. This is a partial Robert Ludwig hot mix. Side A has the hot mix, and side B has the early remaster by Lee Holko. Long story short, this album was put out originally by Bob Ludwig. It was a really loud mix, and apparently the head of Atlantic Records, his daughter had took the album home to listen to, and it was skipping on her turntable, so he ordered a recall, and they did a really simple remaster, just took the high end off it, which I think neutered the album. So this particular pressing, or the first pressings with the hot mix, are the ones that everybody wants. It's hard to find them in good shape. This one's a VG Plus copy, and I got a great deal on it. And my original copy as a teenager was a hot mix, both sides. And again, I was happy as I could be when I got this one back in my collection. I felt like it was a hole that needed to be filled, and I'm glad I had it back in the collection. And I play this thing on a pretty regular basis. This next one is one I never thought I'd have, and it just, when the vinyl gods smile on you, they smile on you. This is a Velvet Underground Nico, Andy Warhol. This is a third press / airbrush cover. Super clean. Got this on eBay about a month ago. It looked really clean, especially from what I can see on the vinyl. Took a shot, and my high bid came in five to 10. I think it was $10 under my max bid. And if this had the original sticker on it, this album would be about a $300 to $400 album. And its current condition, missing the banana, I'd say it's right around close to $300. That's what they seem to be going for. But it's a hard one to find clean. And first pressings, if I had a first press that was this clean, $600, $700, $800 album. It's one of those that's in high demand, and finding clean copies is getting harder and harder to find. So I was really happy when I was able to get this one in. This next one I found just rediscovering jazz. It's one of my favorite Blue Note titles, and I was really happy to get an original pressing. It's Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Indestructible. It's the first pressing mono. Super clean. It features Lee Morgan, Curtis Fuller, Wayne Shorter, Cedar Walton, and Reginald Workman on this particular album. If you don't know a lot about Art Blakey, this is one of those albums I highly recommend. It's great stuff. It's one of my absolute favorites, like I said. The first track, The Egyptian, is an absolute smoker. And I got this at a great price earlier this year on eBay, and it's one of those that has started to creep up in price, just like a lot of the Blue Note stuff. So again, I was happy to get an original. This next one is one that's a hard one to come by. It was recently reissued as a Tone Poet. This is Curtis Amy Dupree Bolton, Katanga. This is the first pressing mono, black and silver label. Super clean. Got this by way of Vinyl Vault / Buy Records on Instagram. We've done a few transactions. This one came in, told him I wanted it, did a little bit back and forth, got the money together, and sent it his way. And one of my absolute favorites, and it's a hard one to come by. And I've also got a Tone Poet reissue as well. The next one is actually another one that's difficult to come by. It's one of my absolute favorites. This is Impulse A9160. Elvin Jones and Richard Davis, Heavy Sounds. It's the first pressing stereo. Super clean. Got this by way of eBay about a month ago. It had been sitting there for a while, did a little bit back and forth, like a lot of my dealings, and came to a solid price, and sent him the money. He sent this my way. It's one that's a little bit harder to come by, like the Archer Shep, but it's a smoker, and it's one I'd highly recommend. Raunchy Read It is the standout track on this album, and I highly recommend picking it up if you can find it. And the final one was actually a Grail I got very early on, and I got it by way of Europe. This is A77, John Coltrane, Love Supreme. It's my first pressing, stereo in that orange and black. When I got back into records, I told myself there was a couple Grails that I needed to find, and this was one of those. Started looking online, couldn't find a US seller that had one in the condition I was looking for, so I reached out to Europe. Found a seller out of Belgium that had a first pressing stereo. And saw the VG Plus condition, went back and forth, sent him the money. He went radio silent on me for about a week, and I was worried maybe he took my money and ran, but he sent me the tracking, and this bad boy came about 2 weeks later. I owned a mono previously to this that wasn't in as good a shape, but this sucker plays clean, and this album has skyrocketed in price. Clean monos sell for $600 to $700 minimum. And this is selling for, stereos are selling in the $250 to $350 range now. So, but if you can't find an original pressing, it's been reissued quite a bit. Ironically enough, this just came right before I shot this video. The Acoustic Sounds pressing just came back in stock. And it's honestly, it's one of the best copies sound-wise that compares to the original that I can recommend, and it's $30. And right now they're in print, but for a year they were out of print, and they were selling for $75 plus on eBay. So again, if you can pick it up, definitely take advantage of it. But that's it, guys. That's my top 21 finds for 2021. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Hopefully 2022 will be a better year for all of us. Hope you guys find some more grails of your own. It's a pleasure speaking with you guys, and you have a great one. We'll talk again soon.